All right, and now letter 28. This letter is about the war and a lot about how the demons can use worldliness throughout time to corrupt a human soul. So real worldliness, a work of time. So we know in the past that Screwtape has asked Wormwood not to give him useless or boring information about the war. However, he informs Wormwood that he does want information on the war insofar as it concerns the spiritual state of the patient. So the patient has, Screwtape gives like a little inventory of basically summary throughout the book. So he has escaped the worldly friends with whom Wormwood tried to entangle him. The patient has fallen in love with a very Christian woman. The patient is temporarily immune from Wormwood's attacks on his chastity. The patient is also immune to the various methods of corrupting his spiritual life. So Wormwood has basically failed in all these different ways that Screwtape has so far tried to direct him in. So it says, at the present moment, as the full impact of the war draws nearer and his worldly hopes take a proportionately lower place in his mind full of his defense work, so we can infer that the patient has taken on some work in his local community as like a, warden and helping out with defense of their particular city in England, right? This is World War II. So he's forced to attend to his neighbors more than ever before, which is true charity, right? And it says here that he enjoys it. He's really enjoying being able to take care and serve these other people. So basically, Screwtape says, if the patient were to die tonight, he would almost certainly be lost to us. That means that the patient would almost certainly go to heaven if he were to die right at that moment in time. So, we can infer here that Wormwood, is seeing the war and he's enjoying everyone dying and he's like, oh, my man might die, right? But Screwtape is cautioning him because, right, their aim is to get the patient into hell. And if he dies right now and he goes to heaven, Wormwood would have failed. So then it kind of moves into this philosophy, right? This truth that many humans believe death to be the prime evil and survival as the greatest good. But according to Screwtape, this is propaganda. It says that, Wormwood is starting to believe this, but he shouldn't, right? That's not their goal. That's not their necessary end. But I think this is true, right? Many people believe this. Maybe we ourselves believe this. Screwtape says the desire of humans should be the opposite. So time itself is an ally for the demons as it provides humans with a harder task of persevering in their good work for longer. So that Wormwood should take care of the patient, his bodily safety, just like his girlfriend is praying for and his mom is praying for. Wormwood should also be on his lookout for to keep the patient alive. Because the longer we live, we have to persevere, right? We have to continue to do the good work day in and day out. We have to continue to pray. We have to continue to build our habits for as long as we're alive for. So he talks about how people can be worn down slowly over time if their middle age is hard or painful, right? The routine of adversity, the gradual decay of youthful loves and youthful hopes, the quiet despair of ever overcoming the chronic temptations with which we have again and again defeated this, the drabness which we create in their lives, and the inarticulate resentment with which we teach them to respond to it. All this provides admirable opportunities of wearing out a soul by attrition. So slowly turning someone into a hardened, tense person. Maybe some people are prosperous in their middle age, and then the attack of the demons would be for them to become overly attached to the world. So instead of prosperity, a man finding its place in prosperity, what's really happening is prosperity, the world is finding its place in his heart. And so he's pushing out the desire for heaven, and he's content with earth. It says, the truth is that the enemy, so God, having oddly destined these mere animals to life in his own eternal world, has guarded them pretty effectively from the danger of feeling at home anywhere else. So because God has destined us to live with him, he guards us naturally from feeling too much at home anywhere else. The demons use the span of a person's life to unravel their souls from heaven and attach them to earth. Right? So even if someone lives to be 70 years old, that's a big task for demons to try to disconnect them from heaven and attach them to earth. Screwtape talks about how young people are more easily drawn back to their heavenly home. by the incalculable winds of fantasy and music and poetry. The mere face of a girl, the song of a bird, or the sight of the horizon are always blowing our whole structure away, right? So they continue to feel called and inspired, especially through beauty, their natural love for beauty, back to their heavenly home. It says the demons tempt, so their tactic for these young people is they tempt them away from heaven by convincing them that they will be able to turn earth into heaven at some future date. Right? It says either through politics or eugenics or science or psychology or whatnot, right? So that they need that the demons really thrive on having this time with people to turn them away from God. Real worldliness is a work of time assisted by pride or experience. Now, when he says experience here, it's a word that's useful to the demons because most people mean it in the sense of creating this illusion that experience is necessary for knowledge. That, you know, if I've experienced more, I know more than other people, which isn't necessarily true, right? It says, especially where virtue is concerned, that's not true, all right? I don't need to kill someone to know that murder is wrong. You know, I don't need to watch inappropriate movies to know that they're bad, you know, or to look at pornography to know that something's wrong with it. And often with experience, it can draw us into that sin. It can, corrupt us in ways that we cannot ever then go back to the original innocence. So this is used by demons saying, like, you know, if you haven't experienced this, then you can't understand. Well, and that's just not true, right? I can understand something without experiencing it. I can know something without myself personally having gone through that thing. He ends by saying, we know how valuable time is by the fact that God allows us so little of it. He talks about the majority of the human race dies in infancy. Of the survivors, a good many die in youth. We also know, so while that is true to a certain extent today, but this was also a time when medicine wasn't as good, and so many people did die at a very young age. It is obvious to him, to God, human birth is important chiefly as the qualification for human death, and death solely as the gate to that other kind of life. So again, God sees everything in the present, and we're born and we die, and for us that, you know, there's this sadness, and we think, again, because time is our realm of reality, that's a bad thing, but we can't see on the other end of it the eternal life that God has planned for us in heaven with him. So we know that the demons want to keep people alive on earth as long as possible so that they can convert them and bring them to hell.